Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today, I would like to share a few things that I've been reflecting on that make up the Buddhist worldview, in a sense. And the connection of these ideas was given to me through Mahayana Buddhist nuns who had been trained by Venerable Renze in the Pure Land school of Mahayana. And there were some teachings that I didn't fully agree with, like certain things about supernatural sort of things and other realms, but I think part of developing wisdom is being able to, as it's mentioned in the Bible, to separate wheat from the chaff. And I'm not saying that knowledge of realms or deities or anything is chaff, is that it's useless or not nutritionally valuable for the soul. It's just that I don't think it's necessary in the very beginning to understand what Buddhism is and what the underlying realizations that the Buddha had were, and how to apply those in our own lives and our own situations. So, you might ask, well, what are the truths that the Buddha realized? What is this big secret, mysterious understanding that this man came to have? Well, there's quite a few of them. To start off, there's what's called the Four Noble Truths, which you may have heard before. The truth of suffering. It's often misrepresented as everything is suffering. Well, in a sense, that is true in that nothing is fulfilling and satisfying in a permanent and lasting way. But the claim isn't that everything is suffering necessarily, but more so that there is suffering. That is number one. There is suffering. Okay. The second, of course, will be the origin of suffering, or the cause of suffering, which is our craving for anything, our craving for things to be a certain way in our lives, our craving quite literally for physical things such as a nice cup of tea. If I really need this tea to function, and I don't have it, well, I'm going to suffer. And if I cling on to this tea as something permanent and beautiful, and I just love it, and I'm holding it near and dear, well, if I keep sipping on it, I'll soon come to realize that it's not permanent. I'll reach the end of my cup very quickly and be left with the desire that can never be quenched, ultimately. And this doesn't just apply to teas, of course. It applies to anything that we desire. Then there's also our aversion to things, or not wanting things to be a certain way. Our aversion to pain, our aversion to worry, our aversion to rain, our aversion to people dying, our aversion to the body being born, getting old, getting sick, and dying, our unwillingness to accept things for how they truly are. Okay? And then there is the truth of the cessation of suffering, which is, how can suffering be stopped? Which delivers us into the fourth noble truth of that leads us to another little branch of the Eightfold Path. And this includes things such as, I won't list them all because I don't quite have them memorized at the moment, right speech, right livelihood, right action, right thought, right view, right anyways, I should have maybe prepared with those written down, but you can look them up. They're very easy to find. I'm just giving you the general structure of this and how it works together. I want to give you 6 types of suffering because the Four Noble Truths are very fundamental to Buddhism, and if we don't understand what types of suffering there are, we may not even realize when suffering is bound to take place due to our actions. So, there's the suffering of birth. When a baby comes into the world screaming and crying and wants to remain in the womb. But the suffering of birth isn't just the physical birth of your human body, but it is the birth, death, and rebirth that is called the cycle of samsara, that is in every action, that is in every conditioned thing. So, for example, if I'm addicted to smoking cigarettes, I smoke my cigarette, I dap it out, and about 30 minutes go by, and what will become alive again, or what will arise, will be the desire to smoke again, and that is a kind of suffering. The suffering of aging, having wrinkles and having our body not work as well as we would like, having fallen out of touch with what's cool and trending in the younger generations, our vanity, our views of our self-beauty. Okay, this is the suffering of aging. Then we of course have the suffering of illness and death, which is quite self-explanatory, and maybe the biggest suffering that anyone goes through in life. It's very clear to see. Then a very common suffering is the suffering of not getting what one wants. This is very common, and it happens through many various hopes and aspirations that we build up, or expectations that we build up in our life. And if they're not met in the way that we're expecting, we will suffer because of it. Then there is suffering of separation from what one loves, which I think is also quite self-explanatory. This could be people that we're really attached to. This could be a location, a city that we live in and we love. This could be our job, a friendship, a romantic relationship, anything like that. And then there is the suffering of encountering what one dislikes, such as pain, such as hunger, such as, commercials. The suffering of entering your city and seeing everything being hyper materialistic, and not accepting that as it is, and suffering because of it. Okay? So yeah, these are a few different types of suffering. There are 3 truths that may be called the marks of existence that are very fundamental to what the Buddha discovered, and I'd like to share those with you as well, which is that everything is ultimately impermanent. Everything, all conditioned things are impermanent. And conditioned comes from karma, from causes and conditions that lead to the existence of further things. And as soon as the causes and conditions for a thing cease to exist, then that thing itself will cease to exist as well. And this includes everything. It's quite easy to see in the world. You can see really old beat up cars and imagine that at one point someone really desired that car, and it was brand new and it was cool and fresh, and look at it now, it's all beat up and old. The same with all of our possessions, like cups Ajahn Chah in the Thai forest tradition would say that this mug is already broken, which may seem a little funny because it appears to not be, but it's a commentary on everything is of the nature to break, disintegrate, to not exist at one point or another. This, of course, includes our own existence, our own conditioned existence as a particular person. So, we all know that one day we will die. And it's our failure to see this about everything in the world, every person in the world, that causes us to suffer, because we're clinging on to things that ultimately are, well, you can't cling on to anything. It won't last. You'll just be grasping onto sand as it runs through your fingertips. And trying to grab hold of water. You just can't do it. So, impermanence. This covers the dimension of time. The dimension of space is covered by emptiness, which is the idea that nothing, including ourselves, which we'll get into in a moment, has any true, essential, fixed nature. For example, here's a really giant water bottle. And you could say, well, is this water bottle moving? What is the nature of this water bottle? And from the, what is the word? Starts with a C. From a conventional view, no, this is a water bottle and it's not moving, and its essential nature is that it is a bottle of water, it's made to drink, etc., etc. But if you zoom in into the very electrons and atoms that this is made up of, it's constantly moving. The electrons are spinning around the nucleus something like 300 miles per hour, and it's constantly changing, which I'll make another video about this because it can be quite long. A long explanation about things not having essential nature. But basically, when it comes to selves, there's this idea in Buddhism that there is no real self either. There's no essential quality and any essential fixed nature that it is to be a person named Mason in this particular body. And that what we often misunderstand the self to be is actually what's called the 5 aggregates, which includes feeling, form, perception, consciousness, and I believe mental formations. If I say that wrong, please correct me, someone. But I believe that's correct. So, each of these 5 things are in multiplicity. They are things that appear to be a unified whole, which we call the self. But if we look individually into each one of these, into our form, our physical body, our feeling, like our emotional state, our perception, like the way that we conceptualize things as we perceive them, our consciousness, anything in these 5 can be broken down into further subcategories. And if we look deeply into any of them, we will find that there is no self in any of them. There's no self to be found. And the cool part about Buddhism is that he didn't expect people to just hear this and believe it, but by using the tool of meditation, by looking closely and looking very deeply and subtly into the breath, into the feelings of the body, into the workings of your mind, you will notice that you have no authorship, control, or dominion over any of them, and that none of them are independent of anything else. So there's this quote that I like by Thich Nhat Hanh that says something like, if you look deeply into a flower, you will see that the flower is made of all non-flower elements. And in its existence as a flower, it could not have been a flower in the current state without the sun having existed, the soil having existed, the water having existed, time having existed, a thing called the earth having existed, a thing called a bee having existed that can pollinate, etc., etc. And if you look into this, if you look into the nature of all things, you'll see that everything is dependent on everything else for its own existence. And this is an idea called dependent origination. Now, the last of those three truths is that everything is unsatisfactory, which means that there is nothing externally or internally that we can achieve, accomplish, attain, and truly be satisfied. There's nothing. You can see this in the biblical tradition, in the story of Job, when he's saying all is vanity, all will be swept away in the wind, something of this nature. You can see this as spoken by the Sufis in the Muslim tradition. You can see it in the Hindu tradition. This is very common knowledge throughout nearly all faiths in the world. Also the Jains, of course. Okay, so with those out of the way, that's the overlying philosophy. Now you might think, okay, these are nice ideas, right? These are nice things to think about in meditation. It's interesting. It's kind of earth-shattering in a way if you really understand them. But you might also be asking, well, what does this have to do with real life, the life that I'm living now? This is where karma and cause and effect comes in. The idea of karma is not this really woo-woo out there concept of, oh, I give money to a homeless person and then I get a car on the Oprah Winfrey show the next day. Woohoo, I step on a caterpillar and I get hit by a bus. Or, a lot of people think of karma like in this kind of magical sort of way. And what it really is just cause and effect, or how the causes and conditions that give rise to certain phenomena, either mental phenomena or physical events and objects in the world, they are always changing, right? And so what was the cause and effect, or cause and condition for me to be here speaking into my camera for you today is me having to have learned about Buddhism, which depended on me having lived in Thailand, which depended on me having had a certain dream about the Buddha 4 years ago, which depended on who knows what. And so as these continue forward, as the things that bring the future into existence move forward, they are having direct effects on our free will. And the less aware we are of the causes and conditions that lead our mentality to be how it is, the less free will we will have in making decisions And the less we will be able to see that in our decision making, we aren't actually free in making them. Unless we are able to see past the conditioning of things and to be truly present in the present moment, and to not let our brain run on autopilot, where you just have thought leading to the next thought, to the next thought, to the next thought, and it's just taking you on this roller coaster without any awareness of how you got there or why you, without even questioning, the underlying beliefs that are the foundation of the thought process that we are having. And so, I'll give smoking cigarettes as another example for karma and free will. Whatever led someone to smoke may have been in their outside of their own control, but at one point they chose to smoke a cigarette. So they light up, they smoke, and now they are more conditioned. This is in a psychological sense, like classical conditioning. They are more conditioned to smoke a cigarette when they see one, or whenever the craving arises. They do this over time, and the urge is so strong, the conditioning and the cause for them to smoke becomes so strong that you put them next to a person who doesn't have the addiction of smoking, and you set a cigarette in front of both of them. And if you ask, which of these two people has more free will when considering this cigarette in front of the two of them, it would be obvious that the person who is not conditioned to be addicted to the cigarette has more free will concerning the act of smoking when confronted with a cigarette. And this applies to literally everything, not just cigarettes, but also when things that come up that we are conditioned in a way to react with anger, or to react with a lack of patience, or to react with sadness or grief, or to react with clinging and desire. The more that we are conditioned, the less freedom that we have in the face of adversities and in the face of determining the very course of our lives. And so, this is where morals, action, and understanding come into play, which is that if we understand the true nature of things, the impermanence, the emptiness, the unsatisfactoriness, as well as the noble truths, then naturally what will follow is that we will stop attaching to things that cause us to suffer. We will naturally stop being averse to things that we can't control, such as physical pain. And we will have more free will in our life to approach things with compassion, with understanding, with open, broad-mindedness. And it's just a very beautiful opportunity that we have to learn to see things deeply, to be in the present moment deeply, to touch the real physical direct experience deeply, to look at our own hands and see the magic of inhabiting this physical body, that we can just move around, and that we have agency, and that we have the power to act in ways that will lead the further causes and conditions to be like a seed that will plant good fruit in the future. Sort of a Christian idea as well. Every action, every thought, every spoken word is like a seed that will propagate further into other actions, into other ways of understanding. And by being aware of the cycle that we are partaking in through our thoughts, our speech, and our actions, we can be more likely to behave in ways that are going to be of the benefit of humankind and of animals and of plants and of all living things. So each one of those sections I could go into in great detail, but I'm already at 25 minutes, and I wanted this to just be a very general overview of the underlying philosophy and ideas and how they kind of link together, both in the thought, the ideas, the action, the morality, and just to give people who aren't familiar with Buddhism just a very, very baseline understanding of kind of what is this stuff even about. So thank you so much. I hope you're well, and catch you for the next video. Bye-bye.